Victim playing. Victim playing is not pain, it's performance. A cold, deliberate strategy dressed as suffering. It's when someone bends their weakness into a weapon, turning guilt into control and pity into power. They don't seek healing, they seek leverage. They understand how deeply wired we are to protect the wounded, and that's exactly what they exploit. It begins softly. They sigh, retreat, or say something like, "I guess I'm always the bad one." You see tears, a trembling voice, the fragile body language of someone hurt. But look closer. Behind the cracks is calculation. The moment you start comforting them, the roles shift. Suddenly, the one who caused the harm becomes the one being healed. Their mistake becomes your guilt. Victim playing is narrative theft. They rewrite the story mid-sentence. Your boundary becomes cruelty. Their betrayal becomes misunderstanding. Your reaction becomes the crime. And if you're empathetic, you're the easiest target. Compassion becomes your leash. You start apologizing to the very person who wounded you just to stop the emotional bleeding. You start censoring yourself, saying less, asking less, needing less, until silence feels safer than confrontation. Because every time you speak, they crumble, and you become the villain for making them break. The worst part? You know it's manipulation, but it still works, because guilt doesn't listen to logic, it listens to pain. Victim players don't need to win the argument. They just need to look broken enough for you to drop your weapon. And by the time you realize it, you're already trapped, soothing someone who destroys you with tears instead of truth. False consensus trick. This is how isolation feels disguised as logic. The manipulator doesn't try to convince you directly. They make you believe everyone else already agrees with them. It's not one person against you anymore. It's the entire world. And when it feels like everyone's on one side and you're on the other, you start questioning your sanity, not their words. They'll say things like, "Everyone thinks you're overreacting," or "Most people would have let that go." Subtle, disarming, a simple suggestion that you're out of sync, defective, dramatic. And because human beings are tribal by nature, that thought cuts deep. To be outcast, even emotionally, feels like death to the brain. The genius of this trick is that it doesn't require proof, just implication. Invisible allies, imaginary crowds, people who never appear but somehow always agree with them. You never hear these voices, you just feel their pressure. And soon, you silence yourself to avoid standing alone. You start thinking, maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe the crowd sees something you don't. And that's the trap. They've weaponized your fear of rejection. The moment you shrink yourself to belong, they've already won. Because it's not about making you agree with them, it's about making you too afraid to disagree. Deliberate misinterpretation. This is psychological warfare hidden behind a misunderstanding. You speak, and they twist it. You explain, and they distort it. Every sentence you try to clarify becomes new ammunition for their next accusation. You say, "I felt hurt when you ignored me." They reply, "So I'm the monster now?" You say, "I need space to think." They call it abandonment. You're never talking to them. You're arguing with the distorted version of yourself they've created. Deliberate misinterpretation is a slow demolition of truth. It makes you doubt your own clarity, your tone, even your intention. You start second-guessing every word, filtering yourself to avoid being misunderstood. But that's the goal, to make you so careful, so afraid of saying the wrong thing, that you stop saying anything at all. They don't want understanding, they want control. If they can twist your words into weapons, they never have to face their own behavior. And when your truth becomes a liability, silence becomes survival. That's how communication dies, not with screaming, but with the quiet fear of being misrepresented. Anchoring negative emotions. This is how they train you to fear your own joy. Anchoring negative emotions means pairing your happiness with punishment until even peace feels dangerous. It's not persuasion, it's conditioning. They humiliate you after you laugh. They start a fight right after you feel proud. They go cold every time you express freedom. Over time, your body learns the pattern. Joy equals danger. Success equals conflict. Self-expression equals pain. Eventually, you stop needing them to control you. You control yourself. You flinch at the sound of their tone, dread a room, avoid moments that once made you feel alive, not because of logic, but because your nervous system has been rewired. Anchoring doesn't break you loudly, it reprograms you quietly. You become smaller, more cautious, more obedient, all while believing you're just keeping the peace. But peace shouldn't feel like walking on glass. That's not calm, that's captivity. Ingratiation. This one feels like love at first. It looks like admiration, attention, generosity. But it's not affection, it's investment. Ingratiation hides control behind flattery. They watch you closely, figure out what makes you light up, then feed it back to you like a drug. You're so talented. You're different. No one understands me like you. It feels intoxicating, validating, like you're finally seen. But every compliment has a price. They're not giving. They're buying. Buying trust, buying loyalty, buying access to your guard. When they finally ask for something, your silence, your time, your compromise, saying no doesn't feel strong, it feels cruel. Because they made you believe you owe them something. That's how ingratiation works. It feels safe. Until it doesn't. The warmth that once drew you in turns cold when you resist. The same voice that praised your independence now calls you selfish. You realize it wasn't love. It was leverage. Emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail doesn't threaten you directly. It bleeds you through guilt. It sounds like, if you really cared, you'd do this, or after all I've done for you. It's manipulation dressed in loyalty, control disguised as devotion. You're not being asked, you're being cornered. The weapon isn't anger, it's affection. They use your empathy like a leash, your love like a knife. You give in not because you agree, but because you can't bear to see them hurt. That's the cruelty. They turn your goodness into your prison. You begin walking on emotional glass, terrified that saying no will break everything. Over time, you become responsible for their moods, their comfort, their happiness. You sacrifice your truth for their peace. But love doesn't demand emotional ransom. Love doesn't say, do this or I'll disappear. That's not connection. That's captivity disguised as care. And the saddest part, they'll still call it love when they're done breaking you with it.
Feigning ignorance. Feigning ignorance isn't confusion, it's strategy. It's the calculated act of pretending not to know, not to remember, not to understand. It's a weapon wrapped in innocence. When you call them out, they blink blankly, tilt their head and say, "What? I don't remember that," or "That's not what I meant." They speak with such disarming calm that you start doubting your own memory. The moment you need truth, they give you fog. It's not about clarity. It's about control. Because if they can pretend not to grasp what you're saying, then they never have to face what they've done. The more you explain, the more lost you feel. And soon, you're the one apologizing for sounding too harsh, too emotional, too confusing. Feigning ignorance turns the truth into quicksand. Every step you take to find footing only drags you deeper. You start questioning yourself, wondering if you imagined the wound, exaggerated the tone, overreacted to something small. That's the brilliance of it. They erase the evidence by pretending not to see it. And once they've convinced you that they just didn't understand, they never have to change, because what can't be remembered can't be repaired. Preemptive invalidation. Preemptive invalidation kills your truth before you can even speak it. It's the act of cutting off your voice before it forms words, of dismissing your emotion before it breathes. They say things like, "I already know what you're going to say," or "Don't start your drama again." They roll their eyes, smirk, or sigh, as if your pain is predictable, boring, beneath them. You haven't even started explaining, and already you've been silenced. It's not reaction, it's preparation. It tells you that your feelings are irrelevant, your perspective unwelcome, your voice uninvited. You learn that honesty comes with humiliation, and soon you stop trying. This isn't argument, it's conditioning. Over time, you internalize their voice. You censor yourself before you even speak. You hear their words in your mind. "I'm overreacting. I should just drop it." And so you do. Preemptive invalidation doesn't just silence you in conversation, it silences you in identity. You stop trusting your instincts, your perception, your emotions. And that's the point, to teach you that you don't deserve to be heard even by yourself. Cognitive load disruption. This is chaos disguised as communication. Cognitive load disruption is the deliberate flooding of your mind with so much noise, emotion, and contradiction that your ability to think critically collapses. They talk fast, switch topics mid-sentence, layer guilt over confusion, affection over accusation. Before you can process one thought, they've already thrown 3 more at you. Every word becomes static, every sentence a storm. You try to follow, to reason, to respond, but the ground keeps shifting. You can't win an argument that keeps changing shape, so you stop fighting. You agree just to end the exhaustion. You say yes just to make the noise stop. This isn't communication, it's mental warfare. When you're too tired to think, you'll accept anything that sounds like relief. That's when they strike. They hand you their solution, and you take it. Not because it makes sense, but because it's finally quiet. That's how they win, by drowning your clarity until surrender feels like peace. Comparative devaluation. This doesn't insult you directly. It kills you softly, by comparison. It's when someone lifts others up just to make you feel small, invisible, replaceable. They say, "Why can't you be more like them?" Or, "My ex never made things this complicated." It sounds casual, even constructive, but every word lands like a bruise. It's not praise for someone else, it's punishment for being you. This tactic feeds on insecurity. It rewires your instincts. You start performing for approval, competing for worth. Every compliment they give someone else becomes a silent judgment of you. And every time you try to improve, the goalpost moves further away. They're not trying to help you grow. They're trying to keep you striving, always 1 inch away from enough. The moment you feel small, you start needing their validation. And the more you need it, the less you question it. Comparative devaluation doesn't just hurt, it corrupts your sense of self. You stop measuring your worth by your values and start measuring it by their standards. That's how they own you, not through fear, but through your hunger to be enough.